I am Agnieszka Wood, and on today's show, I am very excited to introduce my special guest, Peter Robbins. Peter has been a trader for over 45 years, and as you can imagine, over such a long period of time, he has learned many valuable lessons. At this point, Peter has over 120,000 followers on Twitter, and he's sharing his insight there on a daily basis. So if you want to get some of his wisdom, make sure you click on the link in the description and follow him. I asked Peter to join me today to discuss his point of view on the topic that most traders are wondering about all the time. Will I ever make it? Welcome to episode number 2, the Made It Day. Hi, Peter, and welcome to the Confidence in Trading podcast.
Oh, so nice to see you again, Agnieszka. And I'm excited that you've started this podcast to discuss a lot of the issues around trader psychology and a very critical component to trader successes, as we both know. And I'm honored to be invited as a guest and look forward to the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I always enjoy talking to you, and we do that on a regular basis. I remember when we met last year, it was actually around that period that we met for the first time, and we did a class together. You were my guest at my masterclass a year ago, and since then we've been in touch, and I always enjoy the conversation. So I am absolutely thrilled to have you here on my brand new podcast. So let's get right into it. Most aspiring traders, begin their journey with very high hopes and a high level of confidence. Despite the statistics showing that most traders fail to achieve success, just nobody seems to be discouraged. The success seems imminent until the trading losses start to chip away at the confidence, and the emotions make achieving consistent profit a sort of a Sisyphean task. That's where the doubt creeps in, and most traders begin to question their abilities in themselves. Will I ever make it? I'm talking to many traders on a daily basis, and it seems that there is this idea of the day when the things will suddenly click and trading becomes effortless, when the money streams to your account and all trouble is a matter of the past. I'm very curious, Peter, if you have ever had the same idea when you were at the point of your trading journey where things got rough. Have you ever thought that there will be this one point in time when from one to another day, things will suddenly change? And what was the reality?
Well, I think, learning to trade or invest, whatever you want to call it, it's like learning any other skill, right? And unfortunately, out there in social media, people that are exposed to being introduced to trading, many people believe or they're sold that there is no learning curve, right? You just have to jump in and you're going to be successful, right? And they expect it to be very simple, and that this fortune awaits you just by opening an account and pushing a few buttons, right? So, coming back to myself, the reality is, yes, I've been on this journey for 40 plus years and continuously learning something new. You're always going to go through different ups and downs of your own experience, right? But when you're learning something new, it takes time, right? And I think a lot of people come to the game or come to the business with the very unrealistic expectations, right? And so they're waiting for this aha moment. For my personal thing, did I ever think I was going to be a time when I would make it? You always hope you'll hit that point. But I think when I started, and we'll talk about my journey a little bit in a sec, but I had very clear expectations that this is a business. This is something you got to take your time to learn. And like anything else, it will take time and it'll click, right? So whether you're learning to drive, play an instrument, whatever you do, normally people come to those, learning those things with the clear expectations, right? They know they got to learn this. We talk piano, you got to learn the scales.
Yeah,
and then
right.
Eventually learn chords, and eventually at some day you may be able to play Mozart, right? Whereas with trading, you can start the game and people immediately try to play Mozart, right? and again, um, it's how you approach the business and the expectations and see that journey and the learning curve, right? So,
Yeah,
anyway,
because it's so interesting. Like the statistics are actually staggering, right? It's over 90% traders are not gonna make it, if you will. I had that myself, like, but I will be different. Do you see
mhm.
that from other traders that like maybe the ambition is this the ambition that they have, or is this day of I make it keeps them motivated? What do you think it is?
Well, I think a lot of people come to trading as already professionals as well, right? So there's these group of very intelligent people. They've had a career that they've been very successful at, and they just think this is just another business, right? That I'm going to
Yeah,
learn it, I'm going to be expert at it, and they're already well educated. Possibly they're already have been successful in other endeavors in their life, right? And then all of a sudden, the reality of trading is something completely different to them, right? And I think whenever you're dealing with something where money is involved,
yeah,
and money where there's no people do not put constraints on themselves when they learn, right? So you can basically do anything you want, and people don't understand the risks involved, and that it is a journey, and you got to start slowly, and you got to build up your experience, and you got to deal with these. You're talking about the different challenges you face as a trader, right? So forget
right.
about, it's like any other business. There's all the things you got to deal with, right? The administration, the setting up an account, having capital, making decisions, and all of that is hard enough. Like you got to learn that as a new trader, but you're also got this opportunity to do whatever you want, right? And you can do anything, and if you don't understand or come to the business with an understanding of what those risks are, it's very easy to make decisions that can either wipe you out or take or make you go back, right? One step forward, two steps back, instead of let's just take one step at a time until we get to our what did you call it, our made it,
Yeah, the made it day. Yeah.
the made it day, right? So the problem is you can, and over time as well, you can feel like, oh, I've made it. How many people during this last bull market thought they made it after
Right.
1 month of trading, right? They started trading. It's like, oh, this is easy. I understand this. I'm making lots of money. And then they realize awful quickly, okay, I might have made it for for a month or two, but I didn't really understand, and that's again part of that learning, right? That you go through. So
Right. And it's like it's so very interesting what you said about how people step into it and the fact that they can do what they want because there is really nobody else telling them, okay, you should not be doing that, right? Because it's just them and the computer. So in fact that the fact that they don't have the limitations kind of brings them into trouble. Plus, of course, they trade not just for money, they also trade the money. So the money is just like right there, like this carrot on the stick, so to say, right? Becoming a total frustration for the source of frustration for a lot of people.
yeah, or I'd use an example of learning to drive a car, right? So it's very structured, right? You start off by
Right.
going up and down your driveway, and it's all about being safe, right? So initially you just stay off of the roads, and then eventually you do testing to make sure you understand the fundamentals of it. And then they finally allow you to go out on the road, but you have to be with someone else who's watching you and making sure that you're safe. And then you do another test to make sure you've reached a certain level. And then eventually you're allowed to go on the highway where maybe the risk is the highest. But in trading, you can literally start the car and be
And just drive.
on the highway immediately, right?
That's so
And
good.
and
Yeah.
so many people, they don't even, like, everyone knows the risks of driving, right? It's self-evident, right? But
Hmm.
something like trading, if especially a lot of these young new traders, or new people interested in trading, they're just so much misinformation online, right? So they're basically told, oh, you can day trade, quit your job, you can be making a million in no time, etc.
Yep.
And no one is telling them the reality, right? And those hard facts, you don't sell courses by being real, right? Because no one's going to be interested to hear that, right? But it's very easy to sell someone on something that, and they have no concern for the risk that these people are taking and the devastation that's being caused by that, right? So
Yeah, and the devastation is that we are not only talking about financial devastation, but I mean, I see it every day that, when that financial devastation takes longer, or just simply the frustration, the health, the family life suffers. There is really so much more to it. When you were making that parallel to a car, learning to drive a car, I don't know if this is also in the US, but that just popped into my mind. Do you know that when I did my driver's license in Poland back then, long time ago, you know that the cars that we are actually driving, that we are learning on, the instructor has an extra brake pedal. Is that
yeah.
also here in the US?
Yeah, if you take, well, just a reminder, I'm in Canada, so but
That's true.
in Canada, and I assume in the US too, if you're taking a driving course with an instructor that has a vehicle, yeah, they have a brake on their side, so they can monitor you, they can watch you, and they can put a stop in if they need it, right? And it's the same thing with a trader, right? If
Yeah,
most
that would be
people have,
helpful.
yeah, no one has a if you don't have a mentor, or if you don't have anyone that's experienced, it would be nice if there's a mandatory stop that protected you, or mandatory limits to the size that you could put on. And again, like, I know for myself, when I talk about new traders and how I would approach trading, if I was to do it over again, I would start off with one or two instruments that are not too volatile. I'd be trading small size relative to what I hopefully will get to. And just like driving, right? You do your drive around on the side streets until you get comfortable, and then you eventually get bigger size, and as you gain skills and experience. So
Yeah, totally. That's a very good metaphor. So for everyone who is listening, just think about how you drive, and that, most of the time you do stop at the traffic lights, right? You do avoid the risk. You're not exposing yourself on purpose to get in trouble. So try to do that in trading too, just simply managing your risk and thinking about the consequences of every action you're taking. Peter, let's talk about your trading journey. How did it evolve throughout the years?
yeah, and like you were talking about your learning to drive, well, my learning to trade goes back many years too. It's hard to even remember back that far, but I started when I was 15 years old. I was always had a passion for investing, trading. I wouldn't call it trading back then because most people didn't trade, right? It was, you got to imagine at that time, there was all these boutique brokerage firms around. The commissions were unbelievable. There were no computers. There was no instantaneous. If you called your broker with an order, you might find out an hour later what your fill was, and then the commissions were, especially if you're a small trader, you literally were trading to pay the brokerage commissions, right? Unless you're really lucky. And back then, again, I personally was very interested in business. I was interested in trading. I live in Canada, like I said, and Canada is very resource based, and so there's lots of penny shares and lots of penny stocks back then, and all these little brokerage firms. They had these newsletters that went out and talked about, it was the same thing. It was just a different type of pump and dump, right? Instead of
Right.
on computers, they did it by newsletter. And those newsletters, again, talk about how things have changed. They would come out every 2 weeks, right? As opposed to every 5 seconds. Every second on the internet now you can find something new, right? So, but again, back then when I started, I was more interested in business and interested in the investment field. But again, I opened up an account when I was 15, very naive. And again, just like most traders, they start off driving fast before they even know how to drive, right? But again, I was interested in business and willing to learn, and no computers, no internet. There was very little even material on. There was material on investing, but it was more business related and fundamentally based, right? Technical analysis back then was thought of as a joke. Like if anyone, each of the brokerage boutiques, they might have some crazy guy in the back that was drawing charts, and they kind of maybe would talk to him every once in a while, but it wasn't serious. But again, over time, more materials came out, and but obviously very different today than what it was back then. And so when I graduated high school, I went into university, studied business. I'm a CPA as well, so I'm a professional accountant. But for some reason, I was never really interested in the fundamental side of investing. I was interested in learning technicals and being more of a trader, right? I had to sort of wait for the technology to catch up with what I wanted to
You
do.
were too early.
Yeah. Um, but even during university, I would go into different brokerage firms and meet different people that were involved. And my real goal was to go into the investment business, right? Not be a trader back then. It was more to be in the industry. But I happened to graduate at a year when there was a major bear market.
So it wasn't a good time either.
Yeah, so there's a major bear market, as well as at the time all of the individual brokerage boutiques were consolidating. So there was a major change in the whole industry, right? So literally there was no jobs available. But I was lucky enough to land a job in the largest insurance company in Canada, and it was in the corporate investment office.
Nice.
So it was one of these fluke jobs. So I was exposed, and again, this was before personal computers, or just when personal computers were coming out. So they still had the sort of the ticker tape in the mail room that you could go and watch. And but I was exposed to all of the trading that was going on in that insurance company, right? So it was a really great education for me. And
Definitely.
then so again, I was more interested in investment side. So I had my own accounts. I was saving money, I was putting it into different investments. And back then, just like now, there's always the latest guru, right? Like who's the hot guy. There was a fellow in Canada that was writing books on trading and how to make a million and all these type of things. So I was following this and following, different techniques. And then when I was working there, I ended up reading a book called Trading Chaos by Bill Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time where something really clicked with me, like this really makes sense. And he really approached not only having a trading strategy, but also was the first time really exposed to the psychological side of things, right? And really understanding the impact of that, and how you need to focus on that aspect of it to really be successful, right? So anyway, I ended up leaving the insurance industry to start my own company with a partner in the real estate business, right? Because like I say, my goal was never to trade for a living. My goal was to learn trading and have that as a supplement.
Okay, so that was your initial idea in
Yeah.
general. You didn't. Okay, gotcha.
Well, my first idea was to be in the business, and then I couldn't get in the business. And then as I evolved, I thought, times change and your life changes and different interests and things go. So, but it's kind of ironic, or it's kind of funny. I'm the opposite of most people. Most people have a job and they want to become a full-time trader.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to have a career in different things. I was more, you could make money and as an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
but interested in trading on the side. And what ended up happening was at that around this was another, again, one of the advantages of age is like gone through multiple cycles, and you learn something new with each cycle. And there happened to be a real estate downturn at this time. So I was kind of forced to, what do I do? Do I go get another job, or do I? So we were sort of holding on to some real estate on the side, but it wasn't economic to build it out. So we had a waiting period. So then I went and studied with Bill Williams down in Texas City. And so that he was a futures trader. So we were trading commodities and trading. And I had a couple of business partners where we also took on some money to trade other people's money,
Mm-hmm.
which is a whole other psychological,
Oh yeah, I bet.
psychological thing, right? So I did that for a while. And then also I was getting married at the time and had a couple of children. And it just so happens at one point, everyone took their money out of the business we were running. For whatever reason, everyone had to some personal situations, right? So again, and this is another reality of how much can you make with how much capital you need to do that, right? So earning a living trading is something that requires capital, it requires commitment, it requires so many different things. So again, my personal situation at the time, I ended up then going and having another career, but continuously traded. And over this time, I've traded many different styles and every instrument you can imagine, some with my own funds, some trading other people's funds. I day traded the S&P or day traded commodities during that period of time, and now have evolved into a trend trader and a swing trader because I do have a full-time job. But that's some of my experience there.
That's so fascinating how many different phases you went through. And what I wanted to ask you is the decisions that you were making, whether you swing trade, whether you day trade, what instrument you trade. How did you make those decisions? Was it because you were struggling with one and you went to another? Because the reason why I'm asking is a lot of times you see that traders change how they trade. And for example, if they cannot make consistent profit with day trading, they will say, oh, this doesn't work. I'm going to switch to swing trading. It's going to be better. Or the stocks don't work. I'll go options because I heard some guy made a million with options, right? What was your motivation to change? And do you think it is easier to make it one or the other way? Or is it really not about what you trade?
Well, the reality is many people do flip-flop from one style to another, thinking that it is the strategy that will make the difference for them, right? And like you just said, a lot of times it's either they haven't tackled the psychological aspect of it, or it could also be that they haven't found the style that works for them, right? So it is critical, and you will hear this if someone's serious to someone, is that you got to find a style that fits your personality,
Mm-hmm.
but also has to fit your lifestyle, your financial expectations, and like you say, there's so many different styles out there, right? I always teach people or tell people that if you're interested in trading or you think you are, first study a number of different styles, and just like me with when I read Trading Chaos, it just spoke to me. You know what I mean? This is like, okay, this
Yeah.
makes sense. And I know you'll talk to people. A lot of people trade or invest using the CanSlim methodology is another one that's very, very popular. And it's the same thing here. You just read it, you understand it. That's something that I'm committed to, right? And but again, some people scalp tick chart, 5-minute charts, and then there's long-term trading, right? But you really got to ask yourself, why are you trading? And what's your time commitment? Does it want it to be a full-time career, or is it a side hustle to supplement other sources of income? What is your risk profile? What is your personal circumstances, your personal lifestyle, right? And a lot of people feel that this trading for a living is, I don't know what that means, right? It's an interesting thing that people think, it's some great career, right? If you talk to many people that trade
Yeah.
for a living, it is probably the hardest career you can pick, and it's a struggle. Same thing. Do you have children? Are you married? Do you have kids?
Right.
What are your financial obligations? How much capital do you have to commit? And again, how much do you need to survive? Right. That's just the reality, right? That especially on this learning curve, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of people are desperate because they need the money to survive. They've committed to trying to trade for a living, and then when they're not making the money they need, then they're more likely to flip flop. They'll go to options, or they'll go to penny stocks, or they'll go to something that offers leverage. Like, I don't know how many times I talk to people that have $100 and they think they're going to make a living trading forex, right, with 400 times leverage. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you're going to have to put in $100 many times until you learn the lesson that that's not a way to trade for a living, right?
Yeah, it's almost
Mhm.
like this trading for a living kind of at some point takes over your living, and this is not what you want, right? Because if you cannot mentally disconnect from the need of money, and the need of money will always be there, no matter how much money you made today, because everyone has to pay their bills, everyone has obligations, so the need for money will be there. But if you are, whether you have your own business or you're trading, if you cannot disconnect from that and just focus on what you're actually supposed to do when you are trading and just concentrating on money, then I think it is very difficult to differentiate and take off that pressure from yourself. And who can really perform under too much pressure? A little bit, it's okay, right? Because it keeps you sharp. But if you are completely stressed out because you think you will lose money, that's not going to really help you to trade. So after so many years of trading, how do you feel about trading? Like, what place does trading have in your life? Because you do spend a lot of time, you are on Twitter. I don't know how much time on Twitter you spend, but you do help other traders. I know you do different interviews. A lot of people know you, so they approach you. You never say no. Well, I don't know, never. You never said no to me so far. But do you feel you made it in terms of trading?
Right,
And what does that mean?
right. So to me, making it means, well, let me back step for a sec. So yeah, I spend a lot of trading is a passion, and it always has been, right? So some people they play golf, some people do whatever. It's like me, I love to talk to traders, I love to read about trading, and I love to trade, right?
Hmm.
And the 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 thing that I've been able to, so as far as made it, the beauty now of I've gone through so many cycles, I've learned so many techniques, I've found what works for me, right?
Hmm.
Which is hopefully you can do that early in your business, right? So you don't have to keep
Right.
shifting until you find that. Because if you can find what calls for you and then focus on it, then you can become an expert in it, right? But also the thing I've learned is your personal circumstances change, you get older, your risk profile changes.
Right.
And so you may go from, so there's nothing wrong with switching styles. And even that, what you've learned is that you may have to change styles because of the current market environment, right? Like look at the last 2 years.
I know.
You cannot make a living as a trend trader, right?
Right.
So, but that knowledge of knowing, okay, this is a good time not to trade, say, as an example, or learn another technique, right? Or and be in tune with the market and want, Bill always said, want what the market wants, right? So, you got to learn to dance with the market. You got to want what it wants,
Right.
not necessarily it's not what you want. The market doesn't care what you want, right? So, but that idea of being able to step back with the experience and say, I understand the cycles we're in. I understand what technique is going to work, and either I want to trade that way or I don't. Like for the last 2 years, it's a great time to be a day trader, right? Lots of volatility, lots
Hmm.
you could trade the 5 minute chart and do great. But I have a full-time job, so it's not something that I could do, but it was a great opportunity. Just like 5 years ago, it was great to be a trend trader or a swing trader because you just bought the dips, and
Right.
you could make a great living, right? But being able to see that, and so when someone asks me, "Have you made it?" To me, that's making it, being able to understand all that and be able to adapt to it. And because there's also this false impression, made it means you've made your $1 million. And again, this is how society portrays traders on social media,
Exactly.
as well as in the movies, right? Look at all the movies, right? Whether Wall Street, whatever, it's like
Yeah.
it's all about greed. It's all about making all this money, and they don't even look at the fact that a lot of these people that are like that are the ones that lose the biggest amount of money too. When you look at the biggest, most successful traders in the world, most of them have had devastating losses. Many of the successful traders are, historically successful traders that people read all their books have died, broke, committed suicide, right? And that's that thing
And
about,
nobody talks about that though,
right?
right?
No,
In
no,
commercials.
no, exactly. But that thing about trading, well, again, there's a lot of people that they call themselves trader. They're really gamblers. They're high risk takers. They have devastating losses that impact their family, their own personal lives. A lot of people commit suicide. There's definitely a negative side of the business, and it is very difficult. It is a hard business,
Mhm.
but making it as far as having a good work-life balance, trader life balance is critical. And you can get so caught up in trading that it becomes all encompassing in your life. And, it is like an addiction, right? And being able to recognize that, if you're going down that path, it's probably not right for you and get out of it or get help. But it's one of those things where it's easy to get caught up in that, right? But having that balance, being patient, learning it slowly is what people aren't saying out there. And unfortunately, a lot of young people are getting sucked into the sales pitch and paying severe consequences because of it, right? So
Yeah,
anyway.
I love the way that you have explained it. What does that mean for you? Made it. And I really hope that the listeners will take it very deep into their heart, because that's exactly what I think the key is to success, to have more distance to all that ideal picture of, made it millionaire and all this success that is kind of waiting somewhere and nobody really knows if anyone has achieved that, like, easily, right, without getting bankrupt or getting heart attack or or all the other things you mentioned. So if you look at the word made it, you have to, I think from the mindset perspective, you have to make trading it has to be this impersonal things to you. But a lot of traders make it personal. They identify themselves through the money, through their success. So they make it very personal. And that makes it actually difficult to make it impersonal. And it's very difficult for people to stop that, because once you identify yourself with your success and then you really have to keep going, right? Because if you are not bringing something into success, it says everything about you personally. I have a bonus question for you. If someone would tell you now that you have to stop trading, what would you do? Tough question, right?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So again, if I had to stop trading, there's still I get a lot out of just learning about trading, studying trading, talking to traders, and helping other traders, right? So that fills a lot of my time anyways. But obviously the benefit, the trading itself is something, and I think this is again differentiating between, well, first of all, you have to define what is success as a trader, right? What does a successful trader mean? And a lot of people, to your point, they just think it's the equity curve and it's how much money they make, and
right,
and an unrealistic definition of success, right? Because even any career anyone has, they have their ups and downs, and in trading, like, you got to expect that at some point your strategy isn't going to work anymore. There's going to be a period of time where you're going to have some drawdowns, and that's just being realistic, right? And if you continuously have this unrealistic expectation, you're just going to torture yourself. And then if you end up having a drawdown and then they triple the size and they end up just you have this downward spiral, right? But to not be able to trade, like I say, there's so much other benefits you get from trading other than just financial, right? And the biggest thing, and I know you talk about this a lot too, is you learn about yourself, right? Like there's I always say trading is a greatest psychiatrist, right, or greatest psychologist, because you cannot trade without facing your issues, your beliefs, your reactions to things, your emotions, your feelings, all of these things. And in order to be successful, in the sense of making consistent, let's call success making consistent earnings,
yes,
or whatever, right? That you need to tackle those things, and you need to address them and confront them and learn to adapt and trade accordingly, right? And the other thing too is, let's face it, we were talking earlier, it's a great community, right? And there's lots of great traders out there.
absolutely.
I've found through Twitter that I've met lots of great traders. Most people are open to talk about their strategies. They'll talk about their experience, like the good ones, like for not all the scammers out there that are doing, but there are a lot of guys and women out there that trade, that are, if they got the experience, they're willing to help their fellow trader, get them going and deal with these issues. And I love your podcast, because I know you're going to start talking about a lot of these issues, that it's about being real, right?
Right.
And not the phoniness out there. And the sooner new traders, or any trader, understands the reality of that, then maybe they can take a step back and approach it in a more organized manner, and treat it as a business that it is. It's not a game, right? It is a very serious business.
Yes.
And the market will teach you painful lessons, and you can confront them, and you will learn about your self-reliance, and you will have personal growth, and there are endless opportunities to do that, and the market will show you the way if you're willing to listen, and that's required to make it, right? Like you need to do that, right?
It's almost like your best friend that will always say the truth to you, right? And the question is, are you ready for the truth? Are you ready to listen?
You can't handle the truth.
Exactly. Can you handle the truth? Because the market gives you very, very honest feedback about yourself, and very immediate, like, and you really have to be willing to listen and not negotiate, not resist it. Just take the feedback, learn from it, and then it will be much softer for you. You will not get slapped that hard every time. I gave often this example, that very first time when you let the loser go and the price goes down and you actually let it go too far, and now you pray for the price to come back up, and it's almost like the market says, okay, this is the first time, I'm gonna help you. Okay, this time I'm gonna save you. So you pray there and you say, I promise I will never do that. This is the first and the last time I do it. So you're saved. The market helps you. Now you can get break even, and you all, thank God, lucky me. But then instead of learning from this and say, wasn't I lucky? The next time that it happens, instead of saying, I'm not going to do that mistake again, say, you know what? Last time it worked. I'm going to just wait until it comes back. So there you go. You see the feedback we're getting. And actually, if you start seeing things in that way, you get the lesson. If you don't learn, the lesson will be much harder because you will have to pay.
Yeah. And not only that, the market will entice you to do something even crazier the next time. So that example, what'll happen is the next time you hold your loss, it's down 20%. You'll say, I know it's going to come back. So you'll add to the position, right?
Yeah.
And you'll keep adding to it and adding to it. And that's where a lot of people end up blowing their account and say, well, it's going to come back. It always does.
Yeah.
Right? So it might rescue you, but it's like it's testing you again, right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Let's see what happens next.
You didn't
time.
learn the first time, so they say, sorry, this time you really have to pay.
Well,
I tried to help you, but sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
So last question that I would like to ask you, because you have had so much experience and you have been trading for so long, do you ever struggle as a trader? Do you ever have a feeling like maybe that you missed it? So you were at work and then you see the move and you go like, I missed it. I wish I was there. Or that you struggle because you took a loss. Or did you ever struggle?
Oh, I struggle every day. I think most traders will say they struggle every day or learn something new every day. And when you say struggle, the question is, how much do you struggle, right? So this is that thing of like, let's say, for example, FOMO. Let's use FOMO as an example. So as an experienced trader, FOMO shouldn't bother you. You should say there's opportunities going to come every day.
Right.
And you should be experienced enough when you see the FOMO, because FOMO will pop up, right? And that'll be, let's use, Bitcoin as an example, say, right? So everyone's on Bitcoin, it's going to go to the moon, everyone's making money. So, during those periods, and I know, let's say the last 10 years, you've seen, the marijuana stock bubble, you've seen the Bitcoin bubble, you've seen, anyway, there's always a bubble happening. And what's great now with my experience is to say, okay, I see what's happening, right? And I can watch it. And sometimes you can then, knowing what's going to happen, you can take advantage and trade accordingly, right? And you're not buying the high and things like that. So part of it is using that experience, understanding the FOMO, because you'll still feel it, right? So it's easy to get caught up in that, but the difference is not acting on it, right? And this is the thing about your emotional reactions. So do you struggle? Yes, you're human, right? You're going to have emotions. You can't help it. One of my big struggles is often taking profits too soon, as an example. I'll just use that as an example, right? So obviously, if you take profits and then the next week it's up another 10%, you're like kicking yourself, right? But putting it into the right perspective, realizing, this, I always say, one trade shouldn't make you, but one trade can break you, right? So knowing that, okay, I missed that one, on to the next one, and learn. It's not necessarily learning a lesson, but you do. Again, you're continuously learning, okay, why did I get out there? I think one of my tweets a couple of days ago or it was today's tweet, actually. If you don't have a reason to get out, don't.
Right? I saw that, yeah.
Okay, so that was today's tweet. And what it meant was, and it maybe, again, I use Twitter, it's more to educate myself and remind myself of all of the lessons I've learned. And that's because I did get out of a trade yesterday that I shouldn't have. Right. So I'm tweeting about my personal experience.
Oh, that's so cool.
Not only in the past, but also in reality. Right. So
that's your inspiration, basically.
Yeah. Reminding myself of what I should have learned. And if so again, that example of you've got a strategy, you've got a exit strategy rules in place, follow them, right? And if all of a sudden, like, the last couple of days, obviously, and again, this is more of a timely issue, but what's been happening recently with the banking thing and lots of volatility. So it's very easy to look at the market. Like, I think it was yesterday, it was up strong, and then all of a sudden, it just in the afternoon, it just started coming off, right? So it's easy to get. It's easy to, again, if you're looking at a 5-minute chart or something, it's very easy to get, oh my God, what's happening here? Like, what's going on? I better get out of my position. And when you step back and look, it's like, no, it's just nothing major. Like, there's no reason to get out, right? But anyway, so that's an example. Yes, do I struggle? Yes, do I remind myself? But I don't get hung up on it and beat myself up, right? But I don't make the mistakes anymore of like holding on to losing positions and stuff like that. So those are the things. But getting out of positions too early is still something I deal with.
That is so good to remind yourself and everyone, because that's again this part of made it or not made it. Like, emotions will always be there. This is how we experience life. We are human beings. I personally don't believe in like excluding emotions in trading. I approach it from a holistic point of view and teach my students to actually use it to their advantage. But knowing that all these things that normally you struggle with, that, the FOMO, it's going to pop up, but it's really about how you are going to handle it. And those things you can learn if you know that you can anticipate them, right? And you can decide for yourself how you're going to handle it. And then with experience, it becomes kind of a muscle memory. And at some point you notice that it's there, but you don't feel the urge to react to it. So that's really good to know that, not having the expectation that one day all those emotions are just going to disappear and you're going to sit there in front of the computer and just be calm and poised and no emotions.
Right. And just one other point about that, again, when we talked about finding the style that works for you or what fits for you, and you can do multiples. Like when I said, I don't hold losing positions anymore, that's not necessarily true, because I may have a long-term account that it is a trend trading account, say, and that you're willing to sit through a 20% drawdown, right? And it fits because you've been holding it for a long time and it's still within the parameters. And then you can have a short-term trading scalping account where you might do some day trading on the side because volatility is up. But it's when people mix those things and they're looking at their small-term scalping account and trading it like a trend trading account and using the emotions that are rising to say, well, it's not big dollars, or it's not that important, or it's sticking to those rules and not making excuses, and there's breaking rules for just breaking them, but then there's breaking them where we convince ourselves it's okay to break them. And
there's a lot of gray areas that we can find, right, to excuse our mistakes or excuse our decisions, just to not to take the loss, basically, if you keep trying avoiding taking the loss. Well, this brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining me for this candid conversation today. It was absolute pleasure to have you here and hear your point of view on all this really important issues for every trader, whether you're just starting or you have been trading for a long time. And I really hope that it will help to take the unnecessary pressure of many traders who are listening to this, and that they will be willing to adjust the unrealistic expectations, because those things are only causing frustration and taking your focus away from trading the plan, basically. Thank you so much for listening to the Confidence in Trading podcast. If you enjoyed my show, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to subscribe so you can come back for a real life conversation in the next episode. Until then, this is Agnieszka Wood from Ahead Coach, and don't forget, you too can realize your dream without losing yourself and your confidence in the process. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.